Alright, so here's the deal. If you guys don't remember, we got this car probably about a year ago. We got this car from Motivicity Distribution. The car was built by Super Street for a series with Motivicity Distribution, similar to what we did with our Type R. Then Motivicity gets bought out by Turn 14, the cars go in limbo. Voila, we now have our Type R back with the Super Street Evo. Problem is, we knew nothing that was done to the Evo. The only information that we have on this Evo is information that I wrote down after I watched the entire build series on the car. That's it. To the point that we didn't even know what fuel it was running. We knew that it was not running on pump gas, but we also questioned if it was running on E85. Nobody would give us clear answers. We had no idea. So we just assumed, well, smells similar to E85, so it's gotta be E85, right? Wrong. Drive the car on E85, obviously it's not tuned for it, car starts acting up, car shuts off, voila, here we are. After a while, Mike Sanders, the guy who actually owns the Evo, finally got in touch with somebody who worked on the car, and the guy said, it's not on pump gas, but it's not on E85, it was tuned for something that was local to the track that they were racing it at the time. So probably like a 110, or some sort of race gas similar to that. So we've been running this car on E85 this whole time, assuming that's what it was tuned for when it wasn't. Excel has done some tinkering on it, trying to figure out kind of what's going on, what needs to be done to remedy the situation, and more importantly, to see if the engine is actually blown. So let's go talk to Alan, the owner, and figure out what they found out so far. So this is Alan Turns. Alan is the owner of Excel Motorworks here in Buford, Georgia. We had the car, actually Alan came and got the car for us because we didn't trust the car to drive here. It ran, but not very well. We just assumed maybe it blew a head gasket or, you know, spun a rod bearing or something. We weren't exactly sure what was wrong with it, but we definitely didn't want to drive it. Alan and his team did some diagnosing and found otherwise. You want to walk us through kind of what you found?
Yeah, so what we started with doing was a compression test on all 4 cylinders to make sure that the motor and everything was in a healthy shape, make sure that we weren't starting with just a dud. We then performed a leak down test just to make sure that there was no leakage in the cylinders, which ended up coming back a little bit on the bad side, right around at 60% leak down, which some people would say it's bad, some people say it's good. The state of the car when we got it, when we realized that it was a race car, was kind of a area where we were like, well, let's try to see if we can save it, because in some cases we run into situations where the car will run so rich that it'll end up washing the cylinders out on the motor. However, I feel like this one's right at that threshold to where we can save it, or we can do a short block. But we're gonna try to save it first, because the motor, I mean, it runs super healthy as long as you don't get on it or anything. But I want to try to save this one, just because I feel like it's right in that area where we can make something happen.
So at 60% leak down, what is, in your opinion, the correct move? Where are we going from here?
So what we're going to end up doing right now, with the data that we got back from doing all our testing, we're just going to end up pulling all the old fuel system stuff out. We're going to end up putting the car back on pump gas from ethanol, just because it's a retired race car now. Nobody's racing it or anything, so we're going to try to keep the motor as healthy as possible, not put it under so much stress. Generally, I like these cars on ethanol. However, the customer requested that he wanted to have something that was a little more streetable. So we're going to go ahead and pull all that old stuff out, put all the new stuff in from DeatschWerks, and see what happens. We're going to put a little ATF in the cylinders as well, just to make sure we can get those rings of seat, and go from there.
So as you heard Alan mention, we are going to be putting a full DeatschWerks fueling system in the car. DeatschWerks sent us a big box of parts. We got 1000cc injectors, new fuel pump, fuel rails, fuel regulator, new fuel pressure gauge, the whole 9 yards from DeatschWerks here in this box. So what we're going to do now is start tearing this thing apart, and Alan and his team are going to get this car put back together. We're going to get a new tune on it, and we're going to see if this thing ends up healthier than it was before. Fingers crossed.
just got done installing the
DeatschWerks
fuel rail with the new DeatschWerks 1000cc injectors. We're now taking all the hardware and fittings that they provided, which is nice, to be able to be compatible with the factory fuel system, like the factory fuel lines and stuff like that.
So that's going to sum it up for today. As you saw, we got, the fuel pressure regulator, the new injectors, the fuel rail, the fuel pump, all that. The only thing that didn't get done today was the fuel filter, just because the fueling setup that's currently on the Evo is obviously not a factory setup. So we were missing some bigger fittings to use the fuel filter, so we didn't get that on today. And we ran out of time to get a base map on the car, so there will be a base map put on the car tomorrow. That way it can function and run on pump gas. And then we are going to cut until we can find some dyno time on DeatschWerks Performance's all-wheel drive dyno to get a solid tune and find some solid power numbers out, and also figure out if the car is going to kill itself. As you saw, the car has a 60% leak down. The idea is that with the new fueling setup, with pump gas, because the E85, because we don't think it was truly tuned for E85, it kind of washed out the cylinders. That's why the leak down was as bad as it was. Hopefully the rings will kind of reseat themselves with the new fueling system and appropriately tuned for the pump gas. So we'll see if that happens. So we'll run the car, then do another leak down test and see if it has improved any, and hopefully the car will no longer try to kill itself. So let's go on and cut over to the dyno and see what happens. So what the car's doing right now is exactly what it did when it broke the first time and we brought it to Excel in the first place. We hope that the fueling system or whatever would fix it, and it runs smooth, but then it just starts misfiring, and I was worried that it it fried a piston ring and dropped compression, but Alan literally just compression checked it and everything was okay, right? So we have absolutely no idea why the car is doing that. And it only does it once you kind of start rolling into boost over like 3,500 RPM. And then it just, Alan maybe suspects a coil pack or something. We have no idea. Doug is in the car messing with it from DBW, and hopefully we can figure something out.
Sometimes Evos just do Evo things, man.
That was a lot better. That was a lot better. I'm not gonna lie to you. I came here today about 80 to 90% sure that car was gonna blow up. And it has probably done 6 to 7 pulls at this point, and the car sounds beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I'm so mind blown. Alan from Excel Motorworks was here with us today. He trailered the car here. He said that it definitely needed that new fuel system from DeatschWerks because the car had 1600cc injectors in it before, which was just way too much for the 93 octane that the car is going to be running on now, since it's basically a retired race car at this point. But the car has never, ever sounded this good. The car is so smooth at idle, the drivability seems fine as he's kind of tuning that on the dyno. This dude is working some crazy magic. and I'm frankly just blown away. I'm really excited that the Evo is going to be back in the arsenal, and we can actually start enjoying the car. It's going to be really fun. So this is Doug with DBW. He was the one that you saw behind the wheel doing all the tuning. Can you kind of walk us through what the timeline was like and what you kind of went through, kind of learning the car and figuring out what the car needed to get it back?
Yeah, so when we first put the car on the dyno, the first thing we normally do is we try and do like a roll calibration so the RPM matches up for the gear ratio. When we tried to do that, we immediately had like some sort of electrical issue or gremlin, maybe it's in the harness. But we seem to have been able to troubleshoot that and get that working. Other than that, everything's been pretty smooth. You know, there's no real issues with getting it dialed in.
How much power did it end up making?
I think we ended up like 424 on
Okay.
a nice safe tune. Real low timing, so we're soft on timing. A little bit higher on boost, like 22 pounds, but not much timing in it. So
And
it should be perfectly good and safe to go beat on it at the track.
yeah, and I was just telling him, this is by far the healthiest this car has ever sounded since we pulled it off a trailer a year ago.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to have it back. Thank you so much for taking on the project.
Absolutely. I mean, it was a pleasure to tune. Not really any issues other than that first little bit.
Would you like to share a little bit of information about DBW and what you do here?
All we do is ECU tuning and calibrations. We don't really do a whole lot other than that. You can find us on Facebook, you know, DBW Motorsports.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
The car did amazing. It performed exactly what we were hoping for. The DeatschWerks systems definitely helped the car perform the way we needed it to. Doug at DBW did an amazing job on the tune. The drivability of it is phenomenal. The power it made is phenomenal while still remaining conservative on the timing. So we look forward to seeing what the car does, and hopefully it brings it a lot of longevity with the setup that we currently have on the car.
Well, I guess there you have it. Very short and simple, sweet video on the car going on the dyno and doing way better than I anticipated it doing. So thank you again to DeatschWerks for supplying that fueling system. That way we were able to get this car dialed in. When we put the fuel system on it, or when Alan put the fuel system on it, the fuel gauge never worked and all of a sudden fixed itself. So like I said, I think I've said in a previous video, that car sat for like a year with E85 or something similar in it without starting other than to go to PRI. So it was probably all gummed up and ruined anyway. And like once again, it's the best cars ever ran. And that's super exciting. So if you want to see more Evo content coming soon, be sure to click the subscribe button, hit the comment, let us know what you think about this whole project and the resurrection of the Super Street, now S3 Magazine Evo. But until then, thank you guys very much for watching. We will see you next time. Have a great day.